Let's be honest, getting to space using chemical rockets is a massive engineering scam. When you look at a rocket, 90% of its total weight isn't the payload, the crew, or the actual spacecraft. It is just the colossal amount of fuel needed to lift the other fuel out of Earth's gravity well. We are burning tons of propellant just to fight a brutal uphill battle against physics. It is inefficient, violently expensive, and it makes leaving the planet a massive logistical nightmare. So, we are bypassing the entire rocket industry. No explosives or multi-stage boosters. Today, we are building a space elevator right here in your backyard next to your mom's tomato garden that just happens to be located on the equator. On paper, the blueprint is stupidly simple. You just need 4 basic components: an anchor station on the ground, a counterweight out in space, a climber car to carry your cargo, and a cable connecting them. There's just one tiny logistical hiccup, at least at this stage of our journey. To make this work, our backyard cable needs to be breathtakingly long. Space is just 100 kilometers up from sea level, but the main orbit that we are working with is geostationary orbit. That is 35,786 kilometers up, because at GSO, the time it takes an object to complete one full orbit matches Earth's rotational period perfectly, exactly 23 hours 56 minutes and 4 seconds. From your backyard, anything parked at this altitude appears completely motionless in the sky, hovering over your house forever. But if we drop a cable from a station parked exactly at GSO, the weight of the cable hanging below the station will drag the whole center of mass down. Gravity wins, the station loses orbit, and the entire apparatus collapses. Ideally, we don't want that to happen. To keep the line tight, we have to apply a game of planetary tug-of-war. We need net upward tension. The mathematics governing these forces along the line is a function of radius given in this equation. Once you go beyond the GSO line, the centrifugal turn completely overpowers Earth's gravity. In plain English, as you move further from Earth, gravity gets weaker, while the outward effect of Earth's rotation gets stronger. And past the GSO line, centrifugal force is in control. To make use of this outward fling, we use a concentrated anchor mass as a counterweight. The distance of this counterweight determines its required mass. If we place it tens of thousands of kilometers out, a standard space station can work, but we want to save on cable material and travel time. So, we are positioning our counterweight just 5,000 kilometers above GSO at a total surface altitude of about 41,000 kilometers. Because it is so close to the GSO threshold, the centrifugal leverage is much weaker. To compensate, our counterweight has to be an absolute behemoth. Think a massive multi-million ton captured asteroid dragged into orbit specifically to serve as our celestial anchor. This, don't ask me how you are going to get an asteroid. This will keep our multi-thousand kilometers string perfectly tight. Sure, if we screw any part of this up, it won't be nice, but hey, the R in science stands for risk. Let's keep moving. It is important to know that a space elevator isn't a tower. It is a game of planetary tug-of-war held up under pure tensile stress. It is beautiful, it is elegant. Furthermore, if your anchor point isn't perfectly on the equator, or if you drive your climber car up the line too fast, you run face first into the Coriolis Force. As the climber moves upward, it carries the angular momentum it had at the base, but at higher altitudes, the cable is sweeping a much larger cycle. So, the climber needs to be moving faster tangentially just to keep up. The cable has to physically drag it eastward to force that speed increase, and by Newton's third law, the climber pulls back on the cable westward. This reaction force is the Coriolis effect in action. The faster you climb, the harder the cable gets pulled sideways. Push it too fast and the deflection exceeds the shear tolerance of the material, and bad things will happen. Now, you cannot buy the cable we need at a local hardware store because the material required doesn't exist in large quantities yet. Here's the core problem. Every single section of the cable has to bear the weight of everything hanging below it. The higher up you go, the more cable is dangling underneath, and the more tension that section has to withstand. So, the cable can't be uniform. It has to get progressively thicker as you climb toward GSO, just to handle the compounding load. But thicker means heavier, and heavier means the sections above needs to be thicker still, which means it will be heavier, and therefore, you get the idea. It is a runaway spiral, and the mathematics that captures it is brutally exponential. When you plug in the number for steel, which has decent tensile strength but is way too dense, the required taper ratio from the ground to GSO is not nice. To have a cable 1 mm wide at your feet, the cable at geostationary orbit would need to be wider than the visible solar system. Still can't be employed. Nor can other conventional materials. Enter carbon nanotubes. These beauties are microscopic cylinders of pure carbon atoms arranged in a hexagonal lattice. On paper, they are the holy grail. They have a theoretical tensile strength of over 100 gigapascals and a density of just 1.3 grams per cubic centimeter. Because their strength to weight ratio is so astronomical, the taper ratio drops from an impossible astronomical number to something engineers can actually work with. At most, only needs to be less than twice as wide as the base in your backyard. The problem? We can currently only manufacture perfect carbon nanotubes in length of a few centimeters. To get 41,000 kilometers out of it, our backyard budget is going to take a hit. A single gram of high purity nanotubes costs a fortune. If we want to weave a tapered cable all the way to our asteroid, we are looking at a multi-trillion-dollar weekend project. And even if we could afford it and make it work, carbon atoms have a nasty habit of degrading when exposed to atomic oxygen in the upper atmosphere, which breaks down the orbital bonds. Plus, the cable will constantly be bombarded by space debris, micrometeorites traveling at 28,000 kilometers per hour, and lightning strikes. One single molecular nick in a cable under 60 gigapascals of tension. Again, nothing nice. But let us just believe that you solved the material science shenanigans in your garage. You are an engineer of considerable renown after all. Now, how do you actually get a 41,000 kilometer string from a cosmic rock down to your tool shed? You can't just throw down a rope down from space, and you definitely can't build it from the ground up. Instead, you have to start in the middle. First, use conventional rockets. Yeah, one last time. To all your manufacturing gear and your seed mass up to geostationary orbit. Once packed at GSO, you begin weaving the initial ribbon using your carbon nanotubes. Here's the trick. You have to spool the cable out in two directions at once. You drop one strand down toward your backyard anchor and simultaneously spool another strand outward toward your captured asteroid counterweight. You must balance the center of mass perfectly at GSO. The Coriolis Force will definitely refuse to be nice to you in this section, but you are the engineer of considerable degree. You make sure it works. Once that ultra thin seed ribbon is anchored at both ends, the hardest part is over. You can now send specialized climber cars up the thread, trailing extra layers of carbon nanotubes behind them, progressively weaving and thickening the cable until it can support commercial cargo. So, how do we actually climb the thing? We need a climber car to haul us up, but we run into a massive energy paradox. You can't put a massive diesel engine or heavy lithium batteries on the climber, because the heavier the car is, the thicker and heavier the cable has to be to support it, and you definitely can't run thousands of kilometers of extension cord from your outdoor outlets. Why? Copper won't be cooperative thanks to its weight and high electrical resistance over megameter scales. The solution? We leave the power plant on the ground. We build a massive array of megawatt lasers in the backyard, aiming them directly at the bottom of the climber. The climber will use high efficiency photovoltaic cells to capture that laser light and convert it directly into electricity to drive its electric motors. But were you expecting a simple solution? We are building a space elevator, Monami. We don't do simple. Now, as you ascend this line, you are traveling at a blistering 200 kilometers per hour. The trip takes roughly 180 hours, which is 7 to 8 days of continuous climbing just to reach GSO. Bring a book or two. For 7 days, your motors are grinding upward against gravity at full load. Then, you cross the GSO line. The net acceleration drops to 0 and the entire situation flips. But that same Coriolis ceiling still applies. Even though the climber now wants to naturally fling itself outward, your motors have to switch roles entirely. Instead of driving the car upward, they become regenerative brakes, holding your speed back to safely coast that final 25-hour stretch and stopping you from blasting into the asteroid at terminal velocity. On the bright side, your brakes are now generating electricity, feeding power back into the infrastructure. Or you might just make provisions for the energy to be radiated away. Your call. And just like that, you now control a work of engineering that's surely going to make neighbor Jeff jealous. Sure, the Homeowners Association might have some complaints, but who cares? If the noise gets too much, you can just take your elevator to space. Now, let's talk about the absolute worst case scenario. Cause why not? What if the cable snaps? Well, nothing nice. Absolutely nothing nice. If the cable snaps, it breaks into two distinct fates based on the local potential energy gradients. The top half from the break point up to our asteroid counterweight is dominated by centrifugal force. The moment it snaps, the kinetic energy will violently slingshot it and our multi-million-ton rock outward into a chaotic hyperbolic orbit around the solar system. If you are past the GSO line when this happens, congratulations, you are now an interstellar traveler, I guess. On the other hand, the bottom half is dominated by gravity and starts falling. but different sections of the cable are at different altitudes, each with different orbital velocities. And as it falls, Coriolis forces shear the whole thing sideways, thousands of kilometers of hypersonic carbon nanotube ribbon coiling around the planet like a whip, shredding satellites, burning through the atmosphere in streaks, and effectively gift-wrapping the equator in a razor-sharp debris belt. So, maybe do check your local municipal zoning laws before you start digging up the yard. Or, if you would rather build a functional nuclear reactor next to the tool shed to power this whole thing, check out the related video right here. But if you happen to be a fan of black holes, I got you covered on that also. Watch the video right here to see if you could make one. All in all, stay positive out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.